They're loud and angry. Tens of thousands of protesters file onto the lawns of Parliament House.
Why are you here? I'm a grandmother. I'm here for our children.
Marching along Commonwealth Bridge to the doorsteps of power, one of the biggest protests the capital has seen in years.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And that Saturday rally on the lawns of Parliament House was the biggest yet by a mob of angry protesters who've been milling around the capital for weeks. Called the Convoy to Canberra, the group has many grievances and beliefs, including some that are batshit crazy. But, as 7 News reported, they're united around one key theme.
They want their freedoms back and an end to vaccine mandates.
If there was no mandates, I would still have a job.
The size of Saturday's rally was impossible for the PM to ignore, prompting him to defend Commonwealth vaccine mandates for aged care and disability workers and suggest the protesters target state premiers instead.
The other mandates that have been put in place by state governments are decisions that they have taken, and they are the governments that they should be raising those issues with.
Today, the convoy moved on, which is a relief for the Canberra Times and other mainstream media, because covering their protests over the past 2 weeks has been a challenge.
What does your mother think of you?
Maybe just leave
Bloody
him alone.
disgraceful.
All he's doing is doing his job. Just leave him alone.
I asked him what station he works for and he can't tell me. That's not doing his job. Other people in this country don't have a job right now. Why should he have one?
And even Avi Yemeni from the far-right Rebel News, an outlet often praised as being on the side of the protesters, was getting an earful.
Don't intimidate by you, Rebel News or anybody else. Okay. We don't want you going up to people.
Personally, he's apologised.
Not surprisingly, the mainstream media have not taken the convoy's concerns that seriously. TV News reported on their arrival at the end of January, and it showed us confrontations between protesters and police after they were forced to move on from a makeshift campsite near the National Library.
Get a bit of corona into you.
And when one of the leaders, Doomsday Prepper James Greer, was hit with firearm charges, that also made headlines. But for the most part, TV has treated the protesters as a colourful contrast to what's going on inside the nation's parliament, while they, echoing Trump supporters in the US, have made it clear they don't trust the government or the media. Last week, they took that message to several of Canberra's TV and radio stations, including the ABC. But for all their distrust of mainstream media, they do want to be listened to. And some reporters have given them a platform. Here is Nine's Chris Ullman, who interviewed one of the protest organisers for the 6pm news.
Former Qantas pilot Graham Hood resigned over the company's vaccine policy and is furious that the protesters are all dismissed as extremists.
They've lost their jobs, they've lost their hope. We want the borders open, we want the vaccine mandates dropped, we want our kids protected and not forced to be jabbed.
And when Ullman finished the interview, he was praised.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Only moments earlier, Hood had told protesters,
"We have all struggled with legacy media. We have. But we need to start treating people with respect. We need to. Because why would anyone want to talk to somebody who keeps calling them a liar? That's right. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies."
That is certainly true. And getting their message across is hard, given their views are so disparate. Speaking to the New Daily, Dr Kaz Ross, who researches far-right extremism, described their platform as
Aussie, Aussie, oi, oi, Anzacs, a bit of Jesus, freedom and save the children.
But despite the challenges, Sky's Tom Connell got down into the thick of it.
They're not afraid to come up and quite a few approaches. There is a bit of tension in the air, Kieran, I must say. We're getting told we're fake news media, you're going, who here? Why aren't you getting the truth out about the vaccine?
And TAN's Hamish McDonald made a concerted attempt to understand where the protesters were coming from.
Did any of you lose jobs during the pandemic?
Everyone's lost their houses. Everyone's lost everything. And you know,
we've got nothing else to lose anymore.
We've got nothing left to lose.
And McDonald concluded,
I know it's very easy to dismiss some of the causes. Obviously, the anti-vax ideas are pretty unpopular. There's clearly people that feel incredibly disenfranchised by what's happened in the world and in Australia over the last couple of years.
Crikey's Amber Schultz also spent some time to give the protesters a hearing.
It's a friendly community tinged with sadness. The women are bound by their losses, be it social, economic or family. All are distrustful of the government. I get the sense that if their concerns around vaccines were met with empathy or understanding to begin with, they might not have been sucked into fringe idealism.
So, how representative is this anti-vax fringe, given that it has mobilised thousands of protesters? According to John Scales, founder of JWS Research, they make up a tiny percentage of the electorate, less than 3%. And he says their views are so individually eclectic and volatile, it's impossible to make sense of what they collectively stand for. Scales says the mainstream parties don't care about them, and parties like Clive Palmer's United Australia Party and One Nation are the only ones chasing their vote. So, do they deserve any sort of hearing? Well, on their opposition to vaccine mandates and the sacrifices they've made, yes, they do. And good on those in the media who braved the hostile reception and bothered to listen. But now, to the big political story of the week.
The Prime Minister's authority has been dealt a severe blow. His long-promised religious discrimination bill failing to make it through Parliament.
Sorry, no, it's not that one.
Troops are about to be seen alongside nurses and regular staff in aged care homes.
And it's not that one either.
China is being accused of throwing its support behind Anthony Albanese to become PM.
No, wrong again. It is this.
Bizarre Anglo men white bread claim triggers backlash.
Yep, half-baked doesn't begin to describe it. So, what sparked the Breadgate outrage? Well, wind the clock back a fortnight to this farewell exchange between Scott Morrison and the Sunrise Gang.
For the record, no, I'm rye bread. Are you at $5 a loaf burger? No, what about you? You a sourdough or a multigrain?
Is that to me?
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I'm just normal white bread toast. That's me.
You're a fibber.
Yes, the PM couldn't name the price of bread in that now infamous press club Q&A, but he didn't muck around when asked to pick a loaf. And on ABC's The Drum, later that day, a Sydney academic claimed Mr Morrison's choice spoke volumes.
The comment about bread was really, the white bread was really interesting. Who eats white bread in this country? Anglo men. I come from a working class background. We had brown bread because we were healthy. I think that it shows a deep lack of understanding as to who works in this country.
Noreen Young is a professor focusing on Indigenous issues and workplace diversity at the University of Technology, Sydney, and she's a big backer of Labor. We'll spare you the rest of her tortured analysis on race, sex, class and bread, and just point out that the stats show 3 times as many people buy white as brown bread in Australia. But who cares? Answer, the Twitterverse, of course.
Apparently, white bread is so out of touch.
That Twitter user clipped up the interview and broadcast it to the masses, along with the revelation, which is true, that Professor Young is a friend of Anthony Albanese. And around the internet the clip went, until, a good week after the comments, the media clocked the fuss and the Daily Telegraph launched a full investigation.
What a loaf of total rubbish.
In which another academic debunked class myths, while Vietnamese bakers sang white bread's praises, and a picture gallery showed 2 Labor leaders and a woman, Gladys Berejiklian, all tucking into the white stuff, which the telly then topped with a column from Joe Hildebrand to warn that Labor could be toast.
This is about as damaging as it gets for Albanese. After all his hard work, he is dragged back into the moronic morass of identity politics in one fell swoop.
On Sky After Dark, Peter Credlin then sliced it further by getting a wordsmith to decode the professor's hidden message.
An Urban Dictionary says white bread has 2 meanings. The first is white bread can be used to mean a black person who is trying to be white and living like they're white. I don't know whether she meant to dredge up that insult, but if so, that was a really bad linguistic misstep.
Nah, I'm pretty sure she didn't mean to. Credlin also invited Government Minister Keith Pitt to join the pile-on.
I eat whatever's in front of me, as I think most Australians do, and I am from working people. It's what we used to do. I mean,
same. Same. I like a bit of white bread. Does that make me non-binary?
No, Peter, I don't think the professor was suggesting that either. Meanwhile, on radio around the country, they were on a roll.
Oh, my Lord. What a nut job. What is the ABC doing allowing this fruitcake on the air? It was a stupid thing to say on the ABC today. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
The ABC are almost China. All they do is hate this country and try to bring it down. Hate the ABC.
Steve Price, too, broadcasting across regional Australia, was getting a daily rise out of it, leading newsreader Natasha Belling to finally slap him down.
I mean, seriously, we've got an aged care crisis, Steve. We're in the middle of a once-in-a-century pandemic. How long have you spent talking about it, though?
Far too long. But with the federal election coming up, there was one more question that had to be asked. Did Labor's leader, Anthony Albanese, go for white or brown? To which he replied,
I think people should eat whatever bread they like.
Ha-ha! Talk about keeping a small target. No wonder some call him each-way Albo. As for the academic at the centre of the storm, she told Media Watch the white bread comment was tongue-in-cheek, and she's shocked it has attracted so much fuss. So are we. But now, back to the pandemic and the V word that dominated the news over the summer.
It's Vaccine D-Day in WA, with workers required to be fully vaccinated if they want to keep their jobs.
Still to come this morning, what can be done to give the kids' vaccine rollout a boost?
But if you tune into radio news bulletins on what's called the Super Network, a host of AM and FM stations in New South Wales and Queensland, and home to the once great John Laws, the word vaccine was nowhere to be heard. Instead, newsreaders offered up this.
The New South Wales government is calling for all eligible people to come forward and get their third dose of a COVID preventative treatment.
And the COVID preventative treatment was popping up in all sorts of stories.
A woman has been arrested for paying someone to get her COVID preventative treatment in South Australia.
And when the Novak Djokovic saga hit the headlines, well, you can imagine.
The Serbian star received an exemption to travel despite not revealing whether he received the COVID preventative treatment.
It's bizarre, isn't it? And it's been going on for some time. Here's the same network reporting on the Qantas ban on unvaccinated passengers back in September.
Qantas has announced it will not carry passengers without their full COVID preventative treatment when international flights resume.
In fact, we've listened to more than 24 news bulletins since December, and not one of the newsreaders ever says the word vaccine. So what is going on? Well, a Media Watch tipster told us.
According to the 2SM newsroom, they've been banned by Bill Corrales, owner of the network, from reporting on vaccines. So to get around this, they call them COVID preventative treatments?
So is this true? When we rang 2SM to ask, we got a call back from someone calling themselves Jack Spratt, as in the nursery rhyme, who yelled at us but wouldn't reveal their name. Following that, another discussion with another person who promptly denied the word vaccine was banned by the station's owner, saying,
the network has not instructed any personnel to stop using the term vaccine. If they, the newsreaders or on-air staff, choose the words as they have done, that is not unreasonable.
We find that hard to believe. Why a radio journalist would willingly say COVID preventative treatment rather than vaccine is completely beyond us. But strangely, that's not the only weird thing happening this summer on the Super Radio Network. Last month, Morning's host Marcus Paul decided to serve up this question, which we have bleeped, in his daily news quiz.
All right, mate, this will get you the goodies. The beautiful young girl who was allegedly, tragically, murdered this week went to school in which New South Wales suburb, mate?
Seriously? It's hard to think of anything in worse taste than using the murder of a 9-year-old schoolgirl as a trivia question. But Marcus shamelessly pushed on.
They held a vigil outside her school last night.
Yeah, I can see it. I can't remember the name of it.
Can't remember the name. You want to have a guess?
And after 2 more callers, he finally had a winner.
The name of the school, mate, do you know?
Yeah, Tweedhead.
Well done, Dennis. You're our inaugural winner. We've got a double CD pack courtesy of Sony Music.
Marcus Paul has since apologised, calling the question inappropriate and ill-thought. But it was not enough to save his job. He's now been sacked. No doubt a preventative treatment to avoid further disasters. And finally, to the Australian, which ran this short item down the bottom of page 2 on Friday.
Apology to Geoffrey Thomas and Justice David Thomas.
So who are the Thomases and what's it all about? Well, Justice David Thomas is a federal court judge who was appointed president of the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, or AAT, in 2017. His brother Geoffrey is a big Liberal Party benefactor. And 2 weeks ago, in her Struth column, Alice Workman suggested those facts might be linked, telling readers,
The brother of Administrative Appeals Tribunal President David Thomas made a $100,000 donation to the Liberal Party the day before Thomas was appointed to a 7-year term by the Turnbull government.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, as workmen observed.
My oh my, what an absolute humdinger of a coinky-dink. As far as coincidences go, this one is an absolute doozy.
As in, it's outstanding or unique. 3 days later, Justice Thomas resigned from the AAT 2 years before his term was up, and the Oz came back to gloat at getting their man.
Exclusive.
Tribunal chief quits after brother's gift exposure.
The president of the tribunal that reviews government decisions has quietly stood down after the Australian revealed his brother made a $100,000 donation to the Liberal Party.
But last Friday, following contact from top defamation lawyers Rebecca Giles and Sue Crescentu, the Australian backed down and told readers that anyone who thought there was a point to the story had got it totally wrong, claiming
the Australian did not intend to suggest that there was any connection between the donation and those appointments.
And adding,
nor did the Australian intend to suggest there was any connection between press reports on the donation and Justice Thomas's resignation from the AAT.
Well, you could have fooled me. The articles did suggest both of those connections, but had absolutely no evidence to back it up. We're surprised the Australian did not have to admit it. And it's worth noting that Richard Ackland's legal news site Justinian, which followed up on the Australian stories, agreed to a much tougher wording for their apology. Less bargaining power, perhaps. All online articles have now been removed, and only the apologies remain. And that's all from us tonight. There's more on our website, where you can stream and download the programme. And don't forget, Media Bites, every Thursday, online. But for now, until next week, goodbye.